Hi, I'm Stacey Anderson, also known as the Supergene. Having lived in 9 cities across 3 continents and counting, Supergene Unleashed features people from around the world sharing their unfiltered versions of female empowerment. With a 20-year global career in digital marketing, operating as a leader and mentor, and now as a wife and mother of 3, I encourage you to unleash your own Supergene and become the most empowered version of yourself. Here is your advocate, ally, and confidant. I am ready to inspire you. Let's show the world what it's all about. Welcome back, my fellow Supergenes. Here is what I know about you. You are smart. You have worked hard. You have given your best to your career. And right now, in this moment, you might be wondering if that is going to be enough. AI is reshaping entire industries. Layoffs are hitting people who did everything right. And even if you still have your job, you might be feeling a creeping anxiety, a sense that the rules are changing overnight and no one told you what the new ones are. My guest today has spent her career deep inside 2 worlds most people think of as opposites: human behavior and technology. 13 years inside Google, decades in brand strategy at some of the biggest agencies in the world, a Harvard degree in cultural anthropology, and she came out of all of that more convinced than ever of one thing: you are not the problem, you are the answer. Abigail Posner has built her life's work around what she calls your human code, the unique, irreplaceable, deeply personal combination of who you are that no algorithm can predict and no tool can replicate. Today, she is here to help you stop dimming that down and start deploying it. The Supergene you're about to unleash is ingenuity, not just creativity, ingenuity. The ability to take your boldest thinking and make it actually land. In a world racing towards AI, it turns out the most powerful technology you have is you. So let's go. Abigail, welcome to Supergene Unleashed.
Thank you so much, Stacey. I love that introduction. I may have to steal some of that language.
Well, I can send it to you. When I honestly took a look at your website as I was preparing for this conversation, I saw one of your pages said Ingenuity Unleashed. And I thought, wow, that's like the perfect tee up for preparing today.
Thank you.
And I really want to start off by laying the groundwork. Obviously, I gave the background that you've worked at many huge agencies, and the most amazing accolade is that you spent so much time at Google, which is obviously one of the world's most data-driven, AI-forward organizations. So many people inside that world are thinking that technology is the answer and they're drinking that Kool-Aid, right? But you came out convinced it was humans. Can you describe what happened in there that has led you to where you are today?
Absolutely. I think you gave a really great history timeline of my background, but really just kind of decoding it a little bit more. There's a through line, right? I mean, what I've done my whole life is really understand why people do what we do. And all of the other things that surround it are vehicles by which we express ourselves, try to understand ourselves, try to help ourselves, right? So if you think social anthropology, which was my focus, and in fact, economic anthropology in particular, right? So that's all about, economics and how we think about exchange and so forth. All of it really is very similar, right? Because in anthropology, you study why people do what we do, right? Why we eat what we eat or marry the way we marry. I mean, you having lived in a number of countries, you probably are very aware of differences, right? With economic anthropology is why we value what we value. Moving to advertising, there I had to understand why people buy what we buy. So it's a different world. It's commerce, but it's still about the why, right? And I discovered how really unearthing that why sparked so many new ideas for product development, for communication development, for brand development. So then when I got to Google and I was asked to sell Google, right? Basically, right? It's technologies, it's insights, it's platforms. I was a total fish out of water. I mean, I had major imposter syndrome because here I was, this, to your point, like this humanist, this people person in this tech company. But actually, that clash, right? That seemingly total disconnect ended up being my superpower because I was able to look at a set of questions that no one else was, or asking a set of questions that no one else was asking, right? Which was, again, the why, right? So when I joined Google, this is like 15 years ago, we were inundated with data and it was exciting, right? Because for the first time, I mean, you were in the communications business. For the first time, we weren't just making guesses, right? As to
Oh, absolutely.
how people were engaging in the marketing sphere, let alone anywhere else, right? Because now we had data to tell us, right? It takes so many clicks to get to a sale. They're asking these questions. They care about these things. We see it from the queries that they're typing in, right? They're watching these crazy videos on YouTube. We see it. We have the data. And so everyone was super excited by that, but it wasn't driving the business as much as we thought, right? It wasn't getting our clients, our advertisers, the agencies for whom those were my clients to really invest in these platforms to the extent that we wanted to. We weren't getting them to really create for these platforms because it was data. Yeah, the data is good, but like I have a great TV spot. Why would I want to put it on this little thinky phone? Right? It's not
Yeah.
it, you know? So I realized here was an opportunity to go beyond the data, to go beyond what I called the what and get to the why, right? And nobody really was asking that. And so to me, I thought it was fascinating. Okay, so we're spending all this time on our phones, but like, why? Really? We're watching these crazy videos on YouTube, which makes you think, well, YouTube isn't a place for my brand. No, no, no. But why are we watching those? And what can we learn from that? Right. And so I spent many, many years putting anthropologists into the field, literally. That's why we call it in anthropology world, right? Putting them into the field to really unearth and discover the why. And we unearthed like such great insight about not just the meaning of this technology for people, but also how they take the technology and reinterpret it and reuse it for their own means, right? So, my point in telling you this whole story is that this through line of understanding human beings and why they do what they do has implications for everything, right? Because at the end of the day, we're creating things, we're selling things, we're, moving the needle for people. So we need to understand them, right? The other thing that came out of this, which I think will be so helpful for all your super genes who watch the show, and I think this is really where I then started pivoting, still very much a humanist, but then started pivoting into a very particular space. I discovered from this clash and from this experience. Oh, and by the way, I should add that so I took my anthropology. Like I couldn't go down the regular route because I barely spoke tech. I didn't know sales lingo to save my life. I was like, so either I'm going to totally die and like get fired, right? Or I got to figure out some other way to do it. And I've always tapped my anthropology, right? That was like, oh, that's my crutch. I can do that. And of course, I had my brand strategy skills. So I knew how to like tailor my insights in cool ways. We learned that in
Yeah.
communication school. And because I was a bit of an actress growing up, I felt very comfy on stages. And Google had a lot of platforms, right? So they would throw me out. They're like, I don't know what this Abigail Posner person does, but clients love her. So we're just going to put her on stage. And by the way, that's how I got scouted 10 years ago by the speaking industry. But this whole story opened me up to a totally new thought. Because I remember people were saying, oh, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And I was like, oh, God, the last thing I want to do is write a book. Like, I'm not an author. I don't want to write a book. And I'm like, I don't even know. What would I write a book about? I have so many different things. Like, I'm a mother in Manhattan. Okay. Well, you've seen that before. Or am I going to write about anthropology? Am I going to write about creativity? Am I going to write about humanizing tech, which was this whole platform I created? Like, what? Forget it. And between that journey And then what happened at Google, I realized something. All these sides of myself, they're actually the point. They're not the problem, right? And we were so taught, especially in the world of brand strategy, to pick a lane, focus, know what your story is, right? But actually, it was these other sides of myself that gave me the leg up, that gave me the edge. So what I used to think of as my coping mechanism was, well, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I better add some anthropology to the mix, right? And I did it my whole life, right? This whole coping mechanism. Because here I was, this child. I was the third child. I was the last child of genius siblings. My parents are math and science people. My siblings are math and science people. Skipped grades. My brother skipped 2 grades, right?
Wow.
He went to Cambridge University to get his PhD in cognitive neuroscience, which they paid for, right? I mean, like, brilliant. And then there was me, and I could barely pass math, right? Like, I was the dumb one. So I knew early on, I was like, okay, I can't play that game. I'm going to die. I'm going to just shrivel up and die. I can't play it. So I better tap different sides of myself. And even at a very young age, like 5 or 6, I remember thinking, well, at least I think I'm cooler than they are, right? Like you could dump me in a bar and I'll pretty much get along with anybody. And I'm a pretty good actress. So I used to do like, school plays and stuff. And I really liked fashion. And so whenever I could, I would take these different sides to give me some edge, to give me something that no one else had. Right. So fast forward to college, I get into university, I get into Harvard. God knows, I mean, right? Like I shouldn't have gone in there. I was not smart enough. And I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to survive this. Like they're going to, the equivalent of fire me, right? I'm not going to survive this. So what am I going to do? Well, I better take something from a side of myself that no one else has. Because that's my coping mechanism, right? That's what I know how to do. So what do I have? Oh, well, I spent many, many years in yeshiva day school. Okay, that's Jewish day school. So I took 2 hours of Talmud a day. I studied Torah. I studied Hebrew. I studied Jewish philosophy, all that, right? And you think, what does that have to do with anything? Oh, well, I took it and I made some connection between that, because no one else had that, and what I was studying, whether it was my English expository writing, whether it was our poli-sci paper. And certainly I applied it in my anthropology classes all the time, right? So I was like, okay, this is my crutch, my coping. Okay, I figured out my strategy. So fast forward to Google when the stakes are even higher. I did the same thing. And so throughout my life, as I said, I saw it as my coping mechanism. I saw it as my way to survive. But it was then after Google, that not after Google, but when I kind of succeeded in this endeavor, right? And my team lived another day, and they gave me more responsibility, and they gave me more teams, and I built more teams. And I was like, wait a minute, this is more than just a coping mechanism. This is my superpower. And once I started realizing in me this taking of the different sides, as opposed to putting me in this box, in this lane, right? But actually taking these different sides, and it's not without some challenge, believe me. I mean, some people were like, what? And I have to applaud Google, because they could have been like, what in the world are you talking about? Right. But there were enough people inside the organization who went, that anthropology thing, that's kind of cool, right? Or enough people in the organization, it goes, literally, this one guy goes, because he was asked by my boss to measure, they like to measure you all the time at Google. It's an engineering company. And she asked him, like, well, what do you think of this Abigail Posner person? He goes, listen, I don't understand a word she says, but my clients love it. So I'm just going to keep throwing her out at them, right? So it was the right atmosphere to allow me to express this, right? Despite the fact that I know people were like, what in the world are you talking about? But it worked, right? So I realized from that moment that I was doing something that was actually adding to my success, not just tamping down the problem, right? And once I started seeing it myself, I started seeing it in other people, right? Because once you're aware of it yourself, you start becoming aware of it in other people. And there were all these successful people who were doing the same thing. They didn't have the term for it. Okay, I created a term for it. And then I started going back in history. and started seeing from the Renaissance onward, right? So I started becoming really passionate about this concept of what I call the expansiveness. And it's the expansiveness of self. And when you take more of your sides and apply them to a challenge, then what happens is your impact expands. Oh, and the world expands with you because they see you doing it and they get inspired. And so that became my kind of mantra for my key narrative. I speak about a number of different things, my key narrative, and it's the focus of my book. But that's all to say, going back, full circle to your introduction. All of that is really your human code, right? And so when I talk about human code, it's certainly there's that focus of expansiveness, no question, and tapping the different sides. And then there's ultimately just your humanness in general, which, we've taken for granted or we don't always realize how to assert. And so I'm not the only one talking about humanness, but I think that the expansiveness is something that I think is just so powerful for everyone to harness. And I'm not sure everyone's getting that message. So that's why I'm pushing it out there.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I totally resonate with the memory lane that you took us down in terms of like staying in your lane and having that one singular focus. And I think that that often happens in your career, especially when you think about your own identity and your career path, right? Like people who are on a journey often aren't looked at by other companies because it's like, oh, but she didn't work at a tech company, so I don't think she can be considered for this role. Whereas what you're saying with expansiveness is so much greater than this. And frankly, there's so many nuggets I want to play off here. First is continuing on what I just said, which is that I wish recruiters could hear your message because this expansiveness and tapping into all of your unique facets is something that I think companies could really benefit from bringing on board. I see so many companies that just hire the same, the same, the same. And, they're going to be getting the same. And your message is very inspirational for people who are looking to make a career change, who are not even like a big career change, right? Like, for instance, me, I have spent so much of my career agency side and I want to move tech side. And I'm struggling with that a little bit with getting some eyeballs on my CV. But I bring so much more to the table. So I think your message is helping to encourage women and the listeners that they shouldn't really give up on themselves. And in fact, they should probably pull out a pen and paper and think about all of their unique attributes that they're not tapping into. Because I think that what you're saying is that as well, like there were leaders in your sphere. You made a comment saying that you noticed that other people around you were doing it too, and it dated back to the Renaissance. So, like, what is a practical way that somebody can start to think about, their uniqueness? Because you kept also talking about how anthropology was your crutch and that was your fail-safe, but what would that look like for somebody who is like having no idea what their crutch is, or yeah, even what is their expansiveness?
Right. I totally get it. I mean, first thing is I hear you that we have these gatekeepers. So my first request is to any of those who are your followers, who are leaders of organizations or leaders of teams, you have a role to play there. Meaning, I was selfish. When I would recruit for my teams, and I built teams for decades, I would purposely look. Of course, I would look for the role related knowledge. Okay, check. But I would purposely look to see if there are other sides of themselves, of those candidates, right? Because I wanted to tap those other sides, right? So I would look. Did you do ROTC in college? Were you an immigrant? Did you write for the newspaper? Right? All these different things actually I wanted because I knew I could incorporate them into my team. And I did. Right. And I created a culture where I encouraged people to embrace their expansiveness. And then you know what happens is that everybody knows about each other's expansiveness, and then they combine them, and then you have expansiveness 10x. And the ideas that surface as a result are amazing. The whole point of expansiveness is not just to feel good about yourself, right? The whole point is to leverage these sides, not necessarily all at once, strategically take one or two where you see that there's an applicability. There are best practices and instincts associated with all of the different sides of you, and apply them to solve a challenge that you have in front of you. My challenge was people weren't buying Google to the extent that I wanted them to, right? They weren't using them for their creative ends. Okay, so how am I going to solve that problem? Oh, I take my anthropology. You may have another side of you that you want to apply for something else. So number one, as a leader, try to look for other sides and try to take from your sides once you learn them. And I'll take you through the journey how to do that. And so that your team members can see you doing it, because then they'll do it themselves. All right, back to, okay, so how do we tap these different sides? Well, it's almost very simple. I actually created an AI application.
Okay.
That's a conversation. That's a conversation for later. But it could take you a day, it could take you a week, it could take you 2 weeks. And you start just jotting down, what do I do that I'm really good at? And maybe I don't even think about it. Like maybe I'm just really organized. Or maybe I love to cook. Or maybe I studied, ballet. You just start jotting them down. You go back, stop thinking about it, take a walk. Next day, you jot more down, right? It's an ongoing process. The second step, which is critical, is you have to ask other people what they think about you, meaning, what traits do I have, right? And be an anthropologist about yourself, right? And just kind of see what they say, and you would be surprised. And I'll give you an example. I remember I did one of these leadership trainings at Google 1,000 years ago. And I mean, I can't even count how many leadership trainings I've been to. So there's another one. And there was this exercise where you had to ask a colleague and then like a personal friend or whatever, 3 traits about you. So I went to my work husband, Rudy, and I'm like, Rudy, give me 3 traits about me. And he's like, oh, well, you're strategic, you're a good manager, you know how to get the best out of everybody. I'm like, okay, check, right, whatever. Then I go to my husband, Mark, and I'm like, Mark, give me 3 traits about me, right? So I can just fill in my homework assignment. He's like, okay, you're strategic, you're a good manager, oh, and you're fun. I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with fun? Thank you. Like, you're fired, right? But then fast forward to COVID, where there were 2 kinds of managers, right? There was the manager that was sympathetic, empathetic, let's do a yoga session together online, right? And that was important, and you need that, right? And then there was the momming, which I have 3 kids, so I understand that's important. But then there's the other type of manager, which was someone like me, who was all about revving up the team and getting them excited, right? So here you have a creative team used to working together, used to being together. And we're telling them, you got to come up with ideas and even more ideas than before. And you may be scared because there's this thing called a pandemic going on, right? So I was like, okay, I am going to leverage my sense of excitement, my sense of fun to get them more energized, to make them realize how awesome their job is, right? I took that sense of fun and I made it a competitive advantage, right? So as I said, you're not going to use all your different sides at once, but just collect them first. And even if you think they're totally unrelated to your job, just collect them because you will see the connections. My sister, I was telling you, my brilliant sister, so she went to Harvard undergrad. She went to Harvard Medical School. She runs a whole conglomerate of doctors in New York, in Boston. And she says to me, she goes, Abby, I have a confession to make. I think they hired me for this job because I raised 4 crazy kids. So I know how to get like people in line, right? It was her momming skills that became her edge, right? Because a lot of people had her role related knowledge, but she knew how to manage a group of idiosyncratic people. So get that list together. Now, you may think, I don't see how any of this stuff can connect, but your brain makes connections, right? So you're from the creative field. If you actually boil down the essence of creativity, it is the connecting of unlike notions or concepts to reveal something novel, right? So everything, everything that's been invented is really kind of things coming together, right? The ingredients are not new, the combinations are new, right? Star Wars, Greek tragedy meets sci-fi, spray sunscreen, creamy lotion meets pan cooking spray, right? Rent the runway, department store shopping meets Netflix subscription service, right? All of these things are coming together, and your brain is hardwired to want to do it. At the level of neuroscience, this happens when synapses combine, right? When they connect. Or rather when synapses fire up, those are the neurons connecting, right? Your brain wants to make connections. It can't help itself. Your brains will make connections between these sides, right? To come up with a novel solution. And what's great about AI, which is why I made the tool, is that one of the most critical aspects of AI as a generative tool for us from a creative standpoint is that it makes associations among remote concepts. Right? The first idea out of the gate may not be the best, but it'll stimulate more, right? Which is why I created an AI app. So get that list and then start combining. You may have like an ink, like trust your brain because your brain's starting to make those connections. Even if you're not, you're like, why am I hampering on the fact that I, you know, was a camp counselor and was really good? Like, what? There's something there. Your brain is telling you something, and you can make those connections, right? That somehow bring a novel idea to the table. And that is the point. The way to succeed in business today is not to be the best operator in the world. I don't believe. And I don't believe, I mean, that helps, right? And it's not just to create incremental change. In this day and age, major change is going to come from big, bold ideas. So you have to harness that sense of ingenuity and creativity. And guess what? If you're taking sides from yourself to do it, your ideas are going to be unique, right? They can only come from you because only you have that set of sides. So not only are you giving yourself an edge by coming up with great ideas, but they're ideas that only you could come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying, actually, something that I've kind of noticed lately is that I feel a lot of people are losing their smartness because so much is being outsourced to AI, you know? Like, even for instance, people writing emails, I'm sure that you see it too. Scrolling LinkedIn, you see people that, previously could barely write 3 sentences in a LinkedIn post are now all of a sudden like Edgar Allan Poe. And, it's a sea of sameness. I mean, yes, you can prompt and work forth and back with the large language model and, get a really well written, narrative or something that somewhat sounds like you, but at the end of the day, it's not you. So I really want to like dive in now and talk about AI because you are giving such a powerful motivation for people to just take a step back, use your own brain, which I think, again, people are starting to forget how to use their own brain and leverage that to come up with the bold ideas. And that being the way that, you can catapult yourself and remain relevant in the current work environment. So when we think about AI, most women right now are very scared that it's coming for their job. Yes, you gave a way to look at it differently, but at the same time, like, we need to adopt AI. I mean, we can't just like step out and say we're not going to use it. So I want to hear from you. How does someone coexist with AI, and how do you really bridge those two realities for someone who is genuinely scared?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I totally get it. I totally get the fear, and I'm engrossed in it every single day, right? I read about it every single day. And I feel it because I have children, who are in college, who graduated from college, and it's affecting them, right? It's affecting their job prospects. So, the whole world, no matter what field you're in, is kind of in this like, what do we do? And so they're not handing jobs over to people, and everyone's kind of just it's hard. It's scary. or they're losing jobs not because their roles are no longer necessary, or their competency is no longer there. It's that all the money has to just be funneled to AI, right? It's just a matter of like we just got to redistribute our funds. So I totally get that. By the same token, I am a huge fan of AI. I am a huge fan of AI. There is no way, and I say this daily to my, like, I like the whole gratitude thing. Like, I don't necessarily have a gratitude journal. I'm a little too lazy for that. But I'm a big believer in like recognizing when things are really awesome. And I will tell my family, like, day in and day out, I'm like, thank God for AI. Because there is no way in hell, no way in hell I could do what I'm doing now. If this were 2 years ago, if I were in this where I'm trying to do 2 years ago, no way. I mean, let's start with the fact that I can get pretty much anything answered, right? So when I had to totally, I mean, this is just a minor example. I had to totally redo my website once I decided to shift and become part of the Emilio Network and just really focus my attention on being a public speaker. I had to totally redo my website. You think I knew what I was doing? No, I have AI to help me do it, right? I mean, the initial website was developed with someone else who had a vision and helped me kind of play out the vision. So I'm not saying I could have started from scratch, but just things like that. I mean, just little dinky things like that. Or how prolific I am, right? So, my book agent is on my ass. He's like, you got to do more videos. You got to get more following. You got to do a newsletter. I was like, I am not doing a newsletter. No way, no how. I am not. And he'd be like, every time he'd see me, he's like, you have to write a newsletter. You have to. And I was like, okay, I'll write a newsletter. If it weren't for AI, there is no way I could be as prolific as I am. Now, to your point, are people leveraging AI to write for them? I guess so. I mean, I hear that. I hear that. But I'll tell you, I use AI to help me have a voice. And what I think is awesome about AI, and I think a lot of people poo poo it because I think there were gatekeepers before. There were gatekeepers in journalism. There were gatekeepers in video production. There were gatekeepers. And if you didn't study video production, well, then you should not be trying to make your own videos.
Hmm.
And if you didn't study journalism, you should not be producing a newsletter. So there. What? No. What AI is doing is democratizing this for me, right? So now I can edit, create, edit, do my own videos.
Yeah.
Riverside is tons of AI baked into it, right? So we don't even realize sometimes how we're leveraging AI to do the things that we now take for granted, right? So for me, I think AI has allowed me to have my voice, has allowed me to project because of the applications. Now, do I put myself in there? I think you can tell like clearly what I deliver is from me and what I think is important, but I would never have the confidence. I would never have had the time to reflect what I want to reflect. So to me, AI is a tool. It is an awesome tool. What I do for my clients, the stuff that I can spit out, it's all my thinking, but it generates it for me. So I'm able to write a proposal overnight, which would have taken me a week, right? Now, I know people say efficiency, efficiency. Everyone talks about efficiency. Efficiency really fucking matters when you're trying to get stuff done and do what you want to do and be the queen of the hill, right? We all want to grow and stretch and be the super genes that we are. And if we don't have the tools to help us do this, we're going to shrink. So I am a huge believer in its capacities and its capabilities. And as I said, I even created an AI tool to help us navigate that notion of expansiveness, right? So that we can be more expansive. How great is that? That the tool is allowing us to be more us, to be more human. Now, the ideas that it surfaces, am I going to love 100% of them? No, but something's going to spark in me because I have enough sense of creativity, because I know myself well enough, because I know my end customer well enough that I'm going to be like, oh, but maybe I take this and reconfigure it. So it gives us a good starting point. I think more than anything, it gives us confidence So while on the one hand, just going full circle to your question, it has stripped us of confidence and it has stripped us of our belief in ourselves. I actually think if we reframe it as a tool to allow us to be more us, to allow us to rise to the potential, to really be able to express what's possible, then we'll see it as a friend, as a partner.
And do you have specific AI tools that you have a preference for, like just really
Yeah,
quickly?
I've played with all of them and I use them differently, quite frankly. I would say I have become much more loyal to Claude, partly because I'm more of a writer than anything. So I'm not much of a coder, though I did use Claude. I tried Claude to make my AI tool and it did a great job. So, some of them have issues, right? Like, I don't think Claude is very good for picture generation and things like that. So I can't use it for that. So I do play with the other ones too. But for my real focused writing work, I would say I really focus on Claude. And I was able to use it. This is so funny. I came back from doing a project and I used Fable, which is now like defunct, right? Because it got all, everything, all that press and everything, and the government had to shut it down. But I used Fable for that one little interval to get my presentation out, and it really worked. It was awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, my claim to fame is I played with Fable and I got something really good in the time frame that it was allowed. It was like up for a day and a half, and I used it, not unbeknownst to me that there was going to be all this drama about it, but I got something really good out of it. So, it's all a matter of our perspective, right? Look, we're all challenged with what's going to happen in the world. We don't know. But right now, all I'm saying is I have experienced way more positive than negative. And it's all how you use it and think about yourself.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I don't know, like personally, I haven't really taken a pause to think about myself in that way. And that's what is so interesting about your background. And obviously, you've talked extensively about how you've studied cultural anthropology and humans and the why they do things. And one of the things I want to ask you is, what does history tell us about what happens to the people who learn to partner with new technology rather than compete with it? And I want to go into this a little bit more just because I think that AI is proliferating so fast that for anyone who's listening that might be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I missed the boat or I haven't dabbled enough with it or, just have any hesitation or feel a little bit, scared by it because it can be scary, as you say, to embrace a new technology. But what does history say when we embrace a new technology rather than compete with it?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked that. I actually have a whole podcast I did with someone all about that and about perspective, right? Because we are a species that continue, which is, I think is a beautiful thing, which continually wants to progress. And so we will always be developing the next technology, fire, metallurgy, the printing press, and they have certainly generated challenges. Fire burns things down, right? But for the most part, they have allowed us to progress. I mean, literally, the invention of fire allowed us to eat meat, which changed our brains. This is reality. This is where we go. And to your point, you can't avoid it. You can't deny it. It's happening. And those people who are fearful of it, and I'm not discounting that fear, but if you're so fearful that you can't step into it and try to understand it, you are going to be left behind because there are such amazing opportunities that come from it. And it's also, I think sometimes we feel like the world is happening around us. And, in reality, that is the case, right? There are wars and we had nothing to do with it. But there's a lot that we can actually have agency around. So, yeah, things are happening at warp speed. That doesn't mean you can't jump in and have some agency around how you want to engage with it, how you want to, what's your perspective on it, right? I don't certainly know every tool. There is no way I'm going to be able to keep up with the tool. Just a little example. I'm part of an expert network. They reach out to me constantly. They want to talk about the next new generative AI video tools because I was at Google and worked on some a few years ago. You think I'm up to date on the new? I'm like, no, I can't speak about this. I don't work at Google anymore, right? It is reality. I'm not going to be able to know everything. And that's okay. That's why it has to start from you. What is it that you want to do? Who is it that you are? And how can I use the tools and which tools can I use to help me be smarter? And sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you have to do a little bit of exploration. But it is within your hands to some extent. And being able to really start by understanding what you want or not even what you want, because we don't know. I don't even know what I want, right? I know what I enjoy. I know what I think I'm pretty good at. I know what I can help other people do. So then how do I use AI to amplify that? And what AI tools? So I have to learn video editing tools because I want to be able to share my message. Okay, well, how do you share your message? It's writing, it's video, right? It's not like I was born to learn video editing tools, but I know that that's going to help me engineer the communications that I want to create. Do I need to know how to use AI to make me an awesome, water cooler, right? Because right now water cooling is probably one of the biggest challenges that AI companies have. I can rely on other people, engineers who are smart. I don't need to know that. So I'm not going to kind of dig into what AI tools can help me. I just read an article about this day, lower the temperature of water. So, I think that helps kind of relieve the tension when you kind of say, well, okay, what do you want? What do you want to learn? How do you want to, build yourself and what tools can help me do that?
Yeah, for sure. I think oftentimes it can feel inundating. As you rightfully said, there, of course, you're not going to know every tool out there, and it can become paralyzing, frankly, if you start to go down that rabbit hole of trying to have a grip on everything out there. So I really like the message that you're giving about taking it back to you. And I want to know, as a final message for a woman who is listening, who feels like she's invisible at work, maybe passed over, underestimated, not seen, what do you want her to hear as a final message? And secondarily, if she could take one thing from you and apply it, what would you want it to be?
Sure. Yeah. I go back to your introduction to me, which is my message of the most powerful technology you have is you. And recognize that there are sides of you that can bring a lot of interesting value. And so my challenge to everyone is there are sets of behaviors you can do, right? Meaning you can look within yourself, not define your meaning of life. That's good too. That's someone else's expertise. Find those different sides of you. Ask other people. First of all, it's just fun, right? And it makes you go, wait a minute, a past experience, and just start kind of thinking about, how those could apply. That's the Monday morning exercise. But the biggest challenge, the biggest, and believe me, I wrestle with this every day, is having belief in yourself
Yeah.
and just saying, I can do this. I can do this. And I think if everything starts with that, I've solved problems before, right? I can do this. And the toolkit that I gave you can help that be the starting point. Also, I am here. Like, hopefully, people will be encouraged to, you know, see my writings on Substack or on LinkedIn or my videos, and the messages will continue beyond this conversation to help reinforce what we're talking about now. So I encourage everyone to come, join the conversations that I'm having, and hopefully that will inspire people and, ask questions. And I'm very I love having dialogue, whether it's on Substack, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on LinkedIn, and to continue this, this conversation. It never ends.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this conversation has honestly been exactly what I hoped it would be. And I felt so encouraged when you took a pause and said to believe in yourself and to start there. And it's a really great reminder, I think, for everybody. I think that this is something that all women could really apply in their right here, right now, is to take a pause. And you have reminded us that the answer was not necessarily a better tool, that it's us and coming back to us. And it's again, unleashing your ingenuity and really, taking your sharpest thinking, your original instincts, the full irreplaceable combination of who you are and putting that forth in the world. So I really appreciate that reiteration of this message throughout today. And for everybody who's listening, can you please just let them know the absolute best way to connect with you?
Yes, absolutely. So my website is abigailposner.com. But also, if you want, you can reach out via LinkedIn, Substack. That's the best way. And hopefully we can all meet.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you feel empowered from the episode. You can connect with me at supergeneunleashed.com and on Instagram at supergeneunleashed. Please share your thoughts, and I look forward to connecting with you. And until next time, keep on shining and showing the world your super gene.